I see you on you, not the camera, right?
Yes, you can look there, or you can look my side. What's more convenient for you?
Okay.
Okay, dear Ambassador, thank you very much for being with us today. It's always very interesting to meet ambassadors, but for me it's very special because I'm a big admirer of Japan.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. And I also know that you brought absolutely new approach. And I have a colleague who worked with you in Japanese embassy here. And she said it was absolutely new approach. You were talking to each person separately, and she said that maybe it's because you have this background, because that you worked a lot with the businesses, and you are not traditional diplomats. So I'm expecting very interesting conversation. And, instead of introducing you, I would like to ask it to make it in a question form. As I know, you graduated in 1981 from Keio University, which is one of the most prestigious universities in Japan, and 3 prime ministers, including Junichiro Koizumi, graduated. I'm a big admirer of him, and some astronauts and some big like CEO of Toyota company, the current CEO. I know that he graduated from university. And this university is in top 10 CEO universities in the world. But after you graduated, you went to work for public sector. Why not private sector? How did it happen?
So thank you for your very detailed research on the University of Keio. And the question itself is quite interesting because I often sometimes asked the same question. But frankly speaking, that is directly affected by my father. He was a public servant. And in the school days, or even in my childhood, I have some image or I have some wish to work for the public. And direct connection or direct reason is that my best friend, one of my best friends at the university, he was 2 years senior to me, was working at JETRO before my participation, my entry. And in the university, I listened to his story, how vividly, how actively he worked at JETRO. So I was somehow moved and wished to be a member of JETRO, and I applied just after graduation of university. So you are perfectly right. My friends of the university went to banks or went to industries and so on, so private sectors. But I'm so special or peculiar presence of the graduate of Keio University.
And so you worked for JETRO, the Japanese External Trade Organization, for 38 years. And it's almost a lifetime employment, or a full lifetime employment. And then now you're an ambassador. And so I think many questions people are asking, how do people switch after 38 years? Why it happened, and why are you not still in JETRO?
If I say my career for 38 years working at JETRO, my foreign friends see me as if I were a so poor guy who could work only in workplace and cannot work in any other private sectors, private companies, and so on. But as you pointed out, lifetime employment is one of the character of traditional Japanese employment system, especially in my age or my old-fashioned age. And I could luckily complete my career at JETRO. But after finishing my career, or after end of my board member's assignment, I was lucky enough to be offered a new position, new post of this ambassador to Kyrgyzstan. And it's a great honor and so welcome to accept it.
But your last position in JETRO was executive vice president of organization. So you reached almost the highest level.
Yeah.
And what was your mission during that work in JETRO?
So JETRO is governmental agency for the promotion of investment and trade, directly linked with the Ministry of Economy and Trade and Industry. And JETRO's activities consist of three pillars. One is to promote Japan's export, but not Toyota or Sony one, but medium and small scale companies' products or Japanese agriculture. We are putting more emphasis on the agriculture export. And second is to promote Japan's investment, overseas investment. That same thing can be said not for the big company, but small medium scales. And third pillar is to promote, that is reverse direction, to promote the Japan, foreign direct investment into Japan. So we welcome the foreign companies to set up their facilities based in Japan. And
we touched the tradition of lifetime employment, but as I know, this tradition is changing. So for younger generation, it's a little bit different. And maybe there are other changes that Japan is going through. What would you say?
Yes, the background is clear. That is, the company type has now changing, or I would say industry. After the World War II, our core industries like automobiles or electric appliances and so on has grown so rapidly and established their position in the world. But now, of course, Toyota is a giant, Honda is still a big company, but now the world is moved, or main driver of the world economy's development is not such type of old-fashioned industry, but IT or software and service and so on. So the type of industry which leads the economy is always changing. So everybody or every working people have to change themselves or adjust themselves to such type of change. So it is quite natural among the young generation, like shift their mindset to select or change their job. And that is a bit different age of ours. So if I would be young, I would not work for such a long time. But frankly speaking, when I entered JETRO, I didn't expect to work so long time.
So it wasn't the plan to do lifetime.
No.
Okay. And now about changes, we have the special time of COVID-19, and many things that were traditional and normal are becoming not normal. And what changes of normality are happening in Japan? What is the new normal for Japan?
So it is a bit too early to analyze or comment on the new normal, because Japan is now struggling with the second wave of COVID. and the number of newly infected patients is still rising. So we or Japanese people are still in the midst of COVID-19 infection. But clearly to say that one thing I can clearly say is that the style or pattern of work is drastically changing. That means in Japan, remote work or online work was far lagging behind other industrialized countries or developed countries. But there is no choice to work remotely. So now the remote work is a very fundamental style of Japan. So that connected with, say, for example, the office pattern or form of the office, they do not necessarily gather in the big building in the center of Tokyo. So it is easily foreseeable that the working style will be changed after the COVID.
Yes. Nazgul Kubakaeva, your former colleague and my new colleague, is saying that her two favorite bosses are enjoying interesting conversation. So she wrote that. I think it was in Facebook. Thank you. Yes, it's very important for us. Yes, I understand it's too early to talk about new normal, and also in Kyrgyzstan, because we are in the end of the first wave only, and definitely we're going to have more. But it's important for us to look into the future and try to guess what it will be. But going back to your career, I understand that the work you were doing was very close to diplomats' work, right? Because you were working in Singapore, Düsseldorf, in New York. You were promoting Japanese investment, Japanese trade, and this is maybe the first thing that all the ambassadors should do. I would like Kyrgyz ambassadors to promote Kyrgyz business first of all outside of Kyrgyzstan. But what's different in your ambassador's role? What is absolutely new for you?
That is a very interesting question, and I arrived here. I came here last October, and since then I'm looking for the answer. What is say a desirable or most appropriate ambassador, and what they would do in Kyrgyzstan? But I thought why I was appointed as an ambassador here in Kyrgyzstan, I could vaguely have some concept of my mission. That is, I am the first Japanese ambassador who have no experience in any embassies or even Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but I have much more experience to promote business. So my mission here is to promote a business between our two countries. Of course, we have some missions. We have found missions to ensure the safety of Japanese people here in Kyrgyzstan. But I would like to put more priority on my activity for the promotion of business, more concretely to say, to increase the Japanese investment into Kyrgyzstan, or in other words, to attract the Japanese company here in Kyrgyzstan.
We'll go back to this, but before I want to ask you, as I know, it was your first time when you came to Kyrgyzstan in October, and you were in the nearer countries like in Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, but not in Kyrgyzstan, right? And you expected something, and you came, and something was just like you expected, and some things were new, right? Different. What did you expect, and what became surprising for you?
As you pointed out, it is my first time to come to Kyrgyzstan, or even, of course, to live or to work here in Kyrgyzstan. And sorry to say, I have almost no image about this country. Of course, I had once been to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan, but I couldn't understand the difference of those
Yes,
countries.
of course.
And that means Kyrgyzstan is quite fresh for me. And shortly after my arrival, I was really fascinated by this beautiful city, Bishkek, with beautiful greenery and beautiful mountains, and above all, with hospitable and friendly people who look so similar to Japanese.
Yes.
So it is quite. It takes a very short time to adjust myself to life in Kyrgyzstan or life in Bishkek.
Interesting. And we have a question from the auditorium. Asil Kanatbek is asking, how long is Mr. Ambassador planning to stay in Kyrgyzstan?
From now on, you mean?
From now, maybe, yes.
Regular assignment period is 3 years.
3 years.
For the ambassador. So if I would make, I don't make a big mistake, I hope I will be here until 2022. But I don't know how this COVID period will be counted towards. So, but I really think the longer the better.
Yes, I hope it will be lifetime. Why not? And I really admire your mission to talk about business between Kyrgyzstan and Japan. Whatever we do, if we import from Japan or we export to Japan, I believe it will be a great experience for all Kyrgyz businessmen. I know that a friend of mine, Aziz Sabakirov, I think you know, he brought Kyrgyz honey to Japan.
Yeah.
And when he did that, it was the first time when Kyrgyz product was imported to Japan. And before that, Kyrgyzstan didn't exist in the database of custom, of Japanese custom. So it shows that such a little business is done. And I know only the owner of Furusato, who is Japanese, who is doing business in Kyrgyzstan. And I don't think there are many more, right? So what do you think will help us to establish more business connections between Kyrgyzstan and Japan?
Yes, you mentioned about the honey's story. So I do think that organic farming products are very promising to export to Japan. So honey is plays a pioneer role. Honey is quite famous, already famous in the Japanese market. But for example, dried fruits, or nuts, or sesames, such products are very promising. So after the calm down of COVID, I would like to push the promotion of such type of organic products. And more promising field I found that is IT. It is a bit regret that this country, this government has no image or no plan to foster the IT as an industry. So they set a target policy to promote digitalization. But that is always from the demand side. That means how to utilize IT technology. But no focus on the supply side, how to develop, how to foster IT as an industry. as I said, it is promising, especially for the Japanese, or especially for the in the connection of Japan. When I talk to politicians and bureaucrats in this country, they often say that they wanted to attract manufacturing industry here in Kyrgyzstan. For example, electric car and so on. I'm very sorry, but I would say the possibility of Japanese car makers to set up their factory here in Kyrgyzstan is almost zero. Because there is no supporting industry. Supporting industry means parts supplier. And if they would set up the factory, all parts must be procured through import. And the final products have to be exported. Also, the labor cost and the infrastructure cost is relatively low here in Kyrgyzstan, but the logistic cost must be enormous. So it is so hard to invite the industrial sector, but there is one breakthrough, that is IT. As far as it connected, logistic cost doesn't matter. And especially for Japanese, there is a great advantage that is there are so many people who can speak Japanese here in Kyrgyzstan. The number of Japanese speakers in Kyrgyzstan is number one among the 5 countries of Central Asia per unit population. Yes. And Japanese IT companies so especially promising is BPO, business process outsourcing field. So Japanese companies, IT companies are always looking for the base of overseas as a new frontier, or for the supporting company to the headquarters of Japan. So in that sense, Kyrgyzstan has many chances to invite Japanese IT companies.
It's great. Thank you. And we have some questions from the people who are watching. Mr. Nurlan Mamirov is asking, does the government of Japan provide any financial support or export credits or loans for Japanese companies to promote the export, for example, to Kyrgyzstan? If yes, do you have real cases?
We Japanese government have no direct subvention or for support money. But for example, we have very sophisticated trade insurance system. So for the export, as for the investment, company can company use such insurance system to secure their business damage, to compensate their business damage.
Okay, so another question: how can economic relations between Japan and Central Asia change under the influence of BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, in the theoretical perspective?
It's in a sense a very delicate question, but One Belt, One Road project of China, we are, let's just say, we are also supporting by project base. So One Belt, One Road project is also supported or financed with World Bank or other international financial institutions. And some project, I think, is not direct, but indirectly financed by the Japanese government financial agency. So if the project would be fruitful and efficient for the Japanese economy, we are ready to support that kind of project.
So you don't consider it as competition?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. What you touched on the fact that Japanese people don't have image of Kyrgyzstan. But if, for example, I'm somewhere abroad and I'm meeting a Japanese person and he's asking about my country, what should I say? What main things should I mention so that he would really be interested in Kyrgyzstan? What are these selling points for Japanese people?
In the ancient age, we are brothers. We lived together in the northern part of the what the name of the river? Yenisei River.
Yenisei, yeah.
And who loves to eat fish went to Japan, and to love meat went to Kyrgyzstan. That's our roots, and it's quite interesting story, and not so popular among Japanese people. So that means our mentality or mindset is, in a sense, very similar. And I was very surprised to see the traditional music instrument or the wares that were so similar to our Ainu people. That is original Japanese were living in the Hokkaido area. So when I see such type of the similarity, I am convinced that of all the story, and we see we found that both countries were so close and near each other.
Okay. So from this story, I know that eating fish makes you more prosperous nation than eating meat. As a vegetarian, I'm happy to hear about that. So this is great. And now I was meeting in the morning. I was meeting with some people from the tourism sector, and before that also. Now everyone is confused. Tourism companies, tour operators, hotels, they don't know when they should expect tourists. What would be your forecast? What would be when the first Japanese tourists will arrive to Kyrgyzstan now after COVID? Will it be 2021, 22?
It is quite a difficult question, and the same situation can be said in Japanese tourism industry. So we receive almost no foreign visitors now in Japan, and they are seriously damaged by the COVID, and they are very much looking forward to coming back, foreign visitors. 2021, it's a little bit difficult, but fundamentally, Kyrgyzstan has very much potentials in the field of tourism. As I said, I have almost no image before coming here, but of course, same thing can be said. Normal or regular Japanese people, and they have no image of the Kyrgyz tourism resources. But here, there are amazing, rich nature with beautiful mountains and lakes. And of course, we need to improve infrastructure or facilities, and also PRs of the potentials of Kyrgyzstan tourism. But there is much possibilities, much What's your room to develop?
Yes, I was in my previous job. I was managing Kyrgyz Concept, the biggest tour operator here, and it was always a big challenge for us to bring Japanese tourists, because you understand you need completely different approach to convince, because yes, once Japanese people start to trust the country, yes, they're ready to go, thousands of people. But before that, it's very hard to build this image. And where should they start, the tourist companies from Kyrgyzstan? Because at the moment, it's very hard to buy, for example, advertisement in Japan, because you are competing with Thailand, you are competing with Australia, with US, with a lot of other interesting and rich destinations. So you cannot really invest into advertising. It doesn't work for a small country like ours. Tour operators, it's hard even to make appointment with them. If you say you're from Kyrgyzstan, they're not very interested. And so it's very hard to break the ice. The number of Japanese tourists was always very small. And Japan was the first developed country Kyrgyzstan made non-visa regime with. But then it was very hard for us as tour operators to lobby non-visa regime for other countries, because Ministry of Foreign Affairs was saying, okay, we gave non-visa regime for Japan, but Japanese are not coming, you see? So it doesn't make sense to make non-visa regime for Americans, Germans. It was a stupid argument, but anyway, they said. So it's still hard. And now after COVID, it will be even harder. Where should they start?
So physical bottleneck is airline connection.
Oh, yeah.
So if we fly from Japan to Kyrgyzstan, there is main 3 connections via Moscow, via Istanbul, and via Dubai. Or Incheon, Almaty, those 2 stops is also possible.
Tashkent also? To Osaka?
Yes. But those connections was too much, irrational, or takes too long time, because although here Kyrgyzstan is located just next to China, that means Japan's next country, but takes a long time to come here. So if we could establish the direct line from Japan to Kyrgyzstan, that is my dream, and that must promote or increase the business from Japan. So I ask always Turkish ambassador when we meet meeting, please build new type of the route from Istanbul, Bishkek to Japan.
Yes.
So that is most effective way to increase. And the second, again, as I said, there is no information, almost no information about Kyrgyz tourism or tourist resource in Japan. If we can tie up with a Japanese TV program to introduce the new type of the tourism destination, or a new type of the purpose of tourism, that would be very effective. So I would like to try to connect with TV program or TV producer, whether they could be interested in such type of program. But the timing is too bad now, and we have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a lot of questions online. Is it possible to replicate Japan's experience as developmental state in Central Asian Kyrgyzstan? Would creation of such institution as MITI work in our region and country? You know what MITI is?
That means MIT is Massachusetts
No, I think it's
MITI, maybe.
MITI.
MITI.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay. Let me try to respond a bit through another approach. Around a week ago, I had a chance to have a speech to the Kyrgyz government officials who are going to take part in the program named JDS, which provide 2 years research and training program at the Japanese graduate school. And in that speech, I emphasized that importance of education. So even in Edo era, that was from 17th century to mid-19th centuries. That was a totally isolated country at that time. So then government banned almost all exchange with the foreign countries. Even under such feudalism era, Japan's literacy rate, so the share of the people who can read and write, was almost 50%, whereas US 20% and in Russia 10%. That means school systems were so popular in that era among the children of middle class or even lower class. And after that, in the Meiji Restoration, there was modernization revolution. The elites played drivers, or that revolution was driven by the elites of the new government. And some of them are dispatched to the Europe and Japan, Europe and the US to learn the new social systems or civilization or culture to introduce to Japan. And same thing can be said in after post-World War II recovery in Japan. Highly motivated bureaucrats, politicians, and many entrepreneurs do their best efforts to catch up with to surpass the Western countries. And all can be said that the important thing is human resource development. So education plays a key role, especially for the young country like Kyrgyzstan. So having said that, I was surprised at the working conditions of the school teachers or doctors or government officials in Kyrgyzstan. Those professions must be the foundation or backbone of the society. And those professions should attract the best and brightest people with better working conditions.
Yeah.
That is, might be not appropriate to say such type of the criticism or comment on the ambassador's position, but I think social reform is needed in Kyrgyzstan.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'm very thankful that you're so straightforward, not less diplomatic, but more saying as you really think, and I really appreciate that. And there we have an interesting question also from Nazik Maeda-san. Do you practice Kaldzen? And what is your Ikigai? We know a lot of Japanese words.
Kaizen is everyday trial to make the quality better, or to the process more efficient and so on. And Ikigai is passion to work for, or the motivation to work for the others. And I'm not, say, working in the industry sector, so I didn't pay much more attention for the Kaizen, but the Ikigai is very important for the every people or every working people. And for me personally, that is the reason why I selected to work in the public sector, is to contribute to the society or to contribute to the bigger mission. That is my Ikigai. And in that sense, I'm very happy to work for the people of Kyrgyzstan. That is my big mission, my big customer. So that is my Ikigai.
Oh, interesting. So you see people of Kyrgyzstan as a customer. As
yes.
Wow, it's very.
I think the work of diplomats or working as a diplomat is somehow similar to working in the service industry. And our main customers are Kyrgyz counterparts, that is the people of Kyrgyzstan. So I hope, or I don't think this program is seriously watched by my headquarters people. But of course, I have to work for the ensure security of the Japanese people here in Kyrgyzstan.
But we are one nation, as you said.
Oh yes. I put more priority on the working for Kyrgyz people, and I should think and act for what is most important for this country.
Great, thank you. We have very practical question from Baku Tomur. He's saying, dear Maeda-san, we have an idea to open a judo class for kids.
Oh.
Is this possible to attract or invite Japanese volunteer who is also a judo master to join our project for 1-2 years?
Let me consult with my colleagues in embassy. We have surely such type of support program. So I don't know in detail procedure, but hopefully I will.
So it's not impossible.
Not impossible.
So Baku can refer to the embassy.
Yeah.
To find out. Thank you. Our friend Seth Fearey he's American, who actually was born in Okinawa.
Oh.
And his father served in Okinawa, and so he spent some years there. Seth is asking, does Japan have programs that could help Kyrgyzstan become more sustainable? For example, sustainable energy technology, the circular economy, energy efficiency of buildings, water management, etc.
It's quite a practical question and to the point. So what we can do, or what Japanese government, or what Japanese embassy in Kyrgyzstan can provide, consists of two patterns. One is officially and one is privately. Officially means, so to say, ODA support or loan and grant program. And we provide a loan project with improvement of infrastructure and as well as road connection or disaster prevention and so on. And also the grant project, we are we have experience to support the power plant or other type of the infrastructure. But on the other hand, the private sector, that is also that plays also crucial role, because for the sustainable growth, trade and investment plays a crucial role. Is a crucial factor, and ODA is quite limited based on the scale of the budget, but the possibility of the investment and trade has no limit. So far as business people are interested in making investment, doing business. So, for example, a small-scale water power plant project, some Japanese companies have shown already their interest. Before the COVID spread, we discussed about how we could progress, or how we could realize such type of project by the private Japanese companies. So both way we can do, and I'm very happy to support such movement.
Thank you. And Bakrit is asking one more question. Can you please advise me on how many students from Kyrgyz Republic won MEXT scholarship last year, and how many places quotas will be given this year?
Scholarship. So again, I said that the JDS program, that is in total 18 to 12 seats for the studying at the graduate school in Japan. In addition, JICA provides various type of the training program, I think in total 50 or more. So that is a kind of scholarship, but for the student, I don't know exactly. Some university provides such a tuition support and so on, but governmental support, I don't know.
Do you think it will grow or go down now after COVID?
COVID plays not so important role, so there is no direct influence by the COVID. It depends on the total amount of ODA budget of Japanese government. Frankly, or to my great regret, the total scale of ODA budget is somewhat declining year by year. So I could say rosy aspect for the future, but we should support such ambitious students to study in Japan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just maybe a couple last questions from the audience. What do you think, as ambassador of Japan to Kyrgyz Republic, what is the potential of Kyrgyz government? Currently, it mostly relies on grant aid. In your interview to Brett Brenneman, you said that maybe Kyrgyzstan should become more independent, maybe rely less on the aid. And yes, as a citizen also, I feel so. I don't think it's good that we only ask for aid. And what do you think the government can do to become maybe less dependent on aid?
It's very difficult question and delicate for my position, but one thing I could clearly or firmly say is that the government should pay more attention to promote the private sector's business. under the shortage of domestic capitals, of course, a grant or loan is quite helpful to establish new type of business or new type of society. But again, such type of budget is limited. So under the shortage of domestic capital, we should promote more direct investment from overseas. And to accomplish or to be successful to invite more private money, we have much to do to change the legal systems more open and transparent, or more, say, protective for the foreign direct investment. We should change the infrastructure. So it is important to support the poverty or to distribute more, say, money to everybody, but for the further or for the future investment, to prepare or to make the condition for the foreign direct investment is quite crucial, I think. And third point is to strengthen the PR. Everybody don't know the possibility of the business in Kyrgyzstan. So ololo house will be the most ideal facility to connect with foreign companies through the business. And in that sense, supporting startups is also very important.
Oh, yes. Thank you. And there is a question about people from Kyrgyzstan that would like to work in Japan. And we heard that Japan is easing the conditions for the foreign workers, but high skill workers, right? What professional skills are needed to find a good job in Japan for people from Kyrgyzstan, for example?
Yes, it is true that we are increasing to accept the foreign workers or highly skilled foreign workers because of the shortage of the workforce or labor force in Japan. And as for the Kyrgyzstan, it is quite promising because so far we have not so much Kyrgyz people who are working in Japan, but there is a very good institution to introduce or dispatch the Kyrgyz people to work in Japan. And those people, those workers received very good reputation among the Japanese companies which received those people. So they are looking forward to increasing the Kyrgyz people working in Japan. There is 2-3 fields which are especially desirable for the Japanese industry. One is hospitality industry, but now the tourism of Japan is deeply damaged, and the hotel workers or restaurants, such type of sectors are cutting their labor force, so it is difficult. But in fact, more than 100 Kyrgyz people are working in the hotels in Okinawa, and they are a big group of Kyrgyz community.
Wow.
And nursing sectors are also very promising. That is as again, we are so similar, and the people feel automatically familiar to the Kyrgyz people, especially the aged generation. So, if Kyrgyz people could speak not good, not fluent, but some Japanese, that is quite possible to find a good job in Japan.
So caring about
Yes.
other people.
So again, we welcome the skilled labor force from foreign countries, but the first selection is done by the examination of Japanese language. So Japanese language literacy is always needed to work in Japan.
Great. And it's always great, when our people go and work in Japan, learn how to work there, and some of them return. I have a friend of mine, Kashkinbaev, who got married in Japan.
Yes.
You know him, and now he and his wife are running a guest house in Krakow, Matsunoki.
Yes.
Have you visited?
No. I missed a chance in this winter.
But yeah, of course you will.
Yeah.
So that's a great example, and I think they set up new standards. And I think it's very important. So thank you. That's all with the questions from the auditorium, and I have one last traditional question. It's a little bit personal. What 3 books had the biggest impact on your life?
Yes. I was very impressed or moved by the era of Meiji Restoration. That is a model of the revolution to modernize the country. And I often read such period, this book. So 2 books written by Shiba Ryotaro. One is about revolutionary leader named Ryoma Sakamoto, and one is about the loss of Japan war. That was 1904 to 1905. The book title named "Clouds Over the Hill." The former one is about the story of those who risked his life for to create a country, create a new country, and the latter one is a story those who risked their lives to defend the country. So those 2 books are very impressive. And the third one is maybe the story of Singapore. That is a memoir of the Lee Kuan Yew, the first Premier Minister of Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew was a great statesman who designed whole Singapore from the independence, when the Singapore itself couldn't afford even own border, to the highly developed countries in the world. As you know, I experienced 3 years in Singapore, and I understand the greatness of Premier Minister Lee Kuan Yew. So it's so impressive. And
did you meet him?
No, regrettably, no. At that time, he was alive, and I could meet only his successor, Go Chok-tong, but I miss Lee Kuan Yew to see.
You were very close. Thank you very much. I know it was very intense. But there were many questions you could not be prepared for, but it always happens, when there were a lot of people watching us. In average, more than 40 people were watching.
Oh, yes,
and it will be recorded, so people will go and see after. And I have a small gift just from ololo. It's a face mask. And
it's original design, right?
It's with ololo.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah.
I love it.
And this is a small cup, ololo cup. So ololo is about a lot of chaos, but it's always beautiful.
Wow!
And some stickers for that you can use.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's so nice. Thank you.
And it was very, very intense and interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very much interested in such type of facilities. So